Welcome everyone to another anime review. Now this one is going to be on Rewrite episode 10. This is my review on episode 10. Why am I reiterating that? Well, never mind. This episode was just after watching Shokugeki no Soma and going to this episode just left me kind of speechless at the end. Now let's get on to why that is into this in-depth, not in-depth review, that would take too long, but this review of Rewrite episode 10. This episode starts off from, Sakuya going into, the barrier, the spatial dimension that Kotori has created to house both Kotaro and the key, and herself in there. Sakuya goes in, breaks barrier, wrecks a bunch of what we can assume to be, which as a visual novel, are the barrier signs, which are like these little like wooden things that Kotori is constantly carving up. Now, as people who haven't read the visual novel are, Kotori's powers are basically as a druid, she can like make stuff, she can create monsters, and she also has these little like things that she makes. Excuse me, that basically are like like barriers and stuff, and she carves them into these cute little animal things, and they're basically these barrier sections which power up the barrier and form the barrier. Basically, Sakuya goes there, wrecks it, and he goes there, and basically Kotaro's basically we thinks about it's possibly going to start a fight, but doesn't, as he's sent there by Akane and Chihaya to keep watch and basically support, what keep watch over Kotaro and everyone else. And basically, Kotaro asks him to train him or to fight, as basically Sakuya basically just pones, and basically we get interactions with Kagari and Kotori, and basically the interactions with Kagari being all interested in what Kotaro is doing as he's training with Sakuya and getting pwned. As basically now we get to know a bit more about Sakuya, like not a lot, but as a visual novel player, I know quite a bit. But in the anime, they don't reveal too much, but they're basically dropping hints, basically with comments and his actions and all that, and his attitude towards Kotaro. Now let's get on to that for a second. But that basically we get to see more about Kagari exploring that dimension, learning a bit more about from Gyo and Penny. Penny's like, if a guy tries very hard for you, that means he likes you and all of that. And basically giving Kagari, I guess, the wrong idea. And even she asks Kotaro later on, does she love him? She's like, no, that's not it. That's not exactly it. But that he's like fighting, not just for her, but not out of love, but out of having a place to return to, as he wants to fix things. And he believes that he can possibly end the war because of his rewrite ability. Let's just say that. And the key, and bring everyone back to school, fix up the occult club, and everyone can have a jolly good time until graduation and all of that. And basically that's his answer. And Kagari kind of accepts that or not, and basically her interactions with him go a bit more deeper. You were like a bit more deeper. Now let's move on. And basically, in another scene further on in the episode, there's a training scene where basically Kotaro gets frustrated and decides he wants to rewrite himself. We don't know what he's going to rewrite, but he powered up his rewrite ability because he's getting frustrated at Sakuya beating him. And Sakuya promptly knocks him out and holds him and ties him down with his other arm restraining technique, and says that you were going to use a rewrite ability, weren't you? So we get to find out that Sakuya does know that Kotaro does have the rewrite ability, and says that you and me, we both know that there's a price. There's a price to pay for using that rewrite ability too much, and that basically you're right to rewrite yourself too much. Wow, that's a mouthful. You will cease to become human, and basically Kotaro accepts that as fact, and we get to see a bit more hint of why Sakuya knows about this, and a bit of why. Even I know how Sakuya knows about this, because I've played and read the visual novel all through all the 3 arcs, through the 5 Curials, Moon, and Terra. So if anyone is a bit confused, you can just ask me in the comments and I'll answer it or whatever. If you're not looking for spoilers, or if you want me to, I'll probably answer it next episode if people are still complaining about it on the forums and all that, just to see if my viewership knows a bit more. Anyways. We get a bit more interactions. Basically, Chihaya is going to leave Gaia, and basically, Akane wants that to happen because of what's going to happen next. Now, I have a few ideas about what's going to happen since I've read the visual novel, even though it's an anime original mostly going up to now. But I can draw some conclusions on what's going to happen. With the previous stuff, with the dinosaur thing, and her being the next Martel Saint, and all that. But let's go back in time in the episode and go to the part where basically the group runs out of, the Kotaro's group runs out of food. They go out to the city, and we get to the Harvest Festival. And basically, Gil and Panny and Moby Chibi basically go there and get supplies. Kotaro, Sakuya, and Kagari just hang out, sneaking out, and we get to see in the Harvest Festival that Gaia and Guardian have like forces set up, like earpieces and all of that. And since it's a Harvest Festival, guys wearing robes aren't I think that suspicious because we see other people wearing robes and stuff, no kimonos and all that. So it could be like a thing, like you're a monk or something. Possibly that also as well. And we also get to see a bit more of, oh man, of the intro of Lucia and Chizuru. Basically, Shizuru is like, basically find that Kotori is basically in the forest. She's in there constantly, and basically just like, we need to send someone to check that out. Shizuru was like, I'll go there, and she's definitely my friend that I would not, cover this up. And initially, she gets relegated to support duty because Guardian's like, okay, that's not good, sabotaging our own efforts. Maybe she has the key and all that. Basically, Shizuru is about to go out. She gets her Uzi, her knife, and all that. Gets on her bike and tries to go out and go after them. But she's not Shizuru, but Lucia stops her. Basically, it looks like they're gonna have a fight, but they don't. And that Lucia is like, "I'll go in your stead." And basically, we get to see the blonde-haired guy, monster guy, whose name is Mito. Now, if you don't know who Mito is, hopefully this won't be the last time we see him. It's clear that he's still alive at the end of this episode. And he might do some stuff episode 11 and 12, which is going to be the big finale. But let's get back on. Basically, Lucia finds, goes to the place where Kotori is, and basically what we get to see is Mito's like, let's go in there with his two other friends, I think Tenma and Kenji or something like that. I forgot their names at this moment. And basically he's like, let's go in that barrier. We saw Gil and Panny go in there. They didn't say they're Gil and Panny, but like those puny monsters go in there. And basically Lucia like knocks out both of Mito's friends. Basically they engage in a fight. Now this fight was what you would call a battle of basically who was superior. As we get to see that, Mito has is basically a lava flame user. Basically his familiar is a lava flame monster, and we get to see a bit more of how familiars work, in that if they're damaged, if they're directly linked to the monster user, they get damaged as well. And that basically lava flame and her vibrating blades are a terrible matchup, which means that he's going to win, but that she has a secret weapon. Basically, Mito lit everything on fire with his lava thing, and it says that he was willing to lit the entire forest on fire because he's a bit crazy, as his two Gaia friends were saying. Basically, Lucia kills the entire forest with her poison, and basically just nearly kills Mito by stabbing his familiar and using that poison to affect him. But even though it's not direct contact, so basically his body is suffering the effects of what the familiar went through. So she stabbed it in the center area, which is where his chest would be. Basically starts coughing up blood, and she's going to finish him off. Now what I did not expect to see was Mito basically says, "You're pitying me, huh? You superhuman users, you monster," and he basically calls her all that because of the poison thing. And he basically just pwns her. Basically what happens is that he powers up his lava thing and just causes a huge ass explosion from the ground. Now as you can see, he's probably when he was on that ground and he powered up that flame, what we can assume is, even though it's not explicitly stated, is that basically he sent the flames into the ground, into the earth, and he caused that huge explosion, which is probably technically what did happen. Basically, Lucia basically gets pwned. She gets sent up into the flames, she loses her sword and all that. She's about to finish. She was about to get that finishable. She let that pride overcome her, and she gets owned. She gets stuck in that flame. When she jumps back, and basically what happened in the previous scene was that Mito, you can use the flames now to create carbon dioxide or carbon something. I think it's carbon dioxide. Basically, that shield and just punches her in the face. Previously, he shields himself with that carbon dioxide thing as a bubble shield with enough air in it because it's carbon dioxide. Basically, he could be supplementing that. A lot of things aren't explained, but you can use your brain to figure it out. And basically, he creates a carbon dioxide, spear, just literally just stabs Lucia, through I think the lung or the lung area. Basically, just sends her into the crevice which the explosion created, which basically means she's dead, as there's no coming back from that crevice. She isn't Kotaro where he can ride his legs or whatever to jump up as high as he can, and that crevice looks like it goes down pretty far into the earth. So there's no way. That wound looked fatal. It's in the lungs. You can't survive that. And yeah, basically Mito was just there with bubble shield laughing. I'm not sure if he's affected by the poison or if that was just a familiar. I think that was just a familiar thing, but he could have been also affected by the poison. But we're going to obviously see Mito, attack, the sanctuary where Kotaro, everyone else is. But I'm not too sure about his friends though. They were knocked out, but it seems like the fight moved to a different section of the forest. But there was a huge explosion, so he could have inadvertently killed them, or because he's a bit crazy, he killed them and doesn't really care. And basically, the end of this episode was, Chihaya leaving and all that. But let's go back to a scene which made me a bit sad. Not as sad as what happened to Lucia this episode, but basically was when Sakuya brings. Oh man, my throat's a bit parched. Basically, brings Kotaro and Kaguri to where Akane is. Like basically Akane introduces herself again, like hello Gypsy, just like in the previous episodes to Kotaro, and we get to see some more interactions. Basically seeing that they won over the key with Krikov, but there's something deeper. Basically, as the Avatar, or recently we see that a scene. I think shortly after this or before this, I can't remember, where she basically goes back into her ghost mode, where she goes blank. She's homo. And it basically Kotaro like, what? You want Kotaro X Saka or something like that? Which is pretty hilarious. The humor of Kotaro is still there. And it's always like he's doing that to like ease his attention and all of that. But basically, we get to see Akane being sad and all that. Her wishing for things to go back to normal, but that's impossible. That dives directly into the next scene, to like the ending scene. And we get to hear, oh my god, that song that played at the end, oh man, from the visual novel, it's tearing me up a bit. Basically, we get to see Akane saying Shihaya has to go to Sakuya, quit running with the organization, tells her a bunch of mean stuff like, don't think you're good at caring for Shimako and all that, and she says that you won't be able to handle what's going to happen next, and there we have it. That's the end of the episode, and basically a bunch of build up, a bunch of foreshadowing about what's going to happen in the last, two episodes. Wait, is it 12 or 13 episodes? 2, 3, I think. But anyways, this anime basically isn't a crazy good adaptation of Rewrite, but it's following its own route. And I honestly can't see why everyone is hating on it, even though they're cutting out a lot of things. This is meant for you to watch. And you have to understand that this is aimed for people in Japan. So people in Japan have access to the visual novel, and this will make them buy the visual novel and all that. And that even people who haven't seen it, well, might agree that the comedy it's a bit too much or it's a bit too slow. They don't explain it, but that's the beauty of it. You have to go play through all the 5 routes of God. That's like saying in real life that if you're fighting against a terrorist organization, you're not going to be able to learn everything about them, that they're evil. If you're on the Federation or the good side, basically you call them as evil and all that. But if you're on the terrorist side, you'll find a lot of information about why they're doing this and all of that, which you wouldn't be able to get if you're not on their side or unless you're a double agent or something like that. Which is exactly what the visual novel is portraying it, is that you won't learn the full story. That's like saying that the full story that was during the American Civil War if you were like on Lincoln's side, or if you're on the Confederate side. It's like you have to see both sides of the story to fully comprehend it. And this is what the anime is doing, and why a lot of people are angry or like disappointed or just dropping this thing as shit because they obviously can't comprehend that. And yeah. Basically, this is it for this review. I think this review has gone on long enough of me muttering on about the things that have happened in this episode. Leave a like, comment, subscribe. Helps. It all helps. Everyone have a nice day where all of you are at. And I'll see you on the next review. Rayamo out.